Hey, and welcome back to History Rescue. As promised, tonight we're going to go over the Glenfield Marlin Model 60. We're going to do a complete disassembly, cleaning, and reassembly of it. These old 22s tend to be used and abused and neglected and not cleaned very often. And like this one, most of them are gummed up and nasty, and we're going to give it a good cleaning, and I'll show you how to take the trigger group apart. Alright, we'll do a safety check on this, make sure she's clear, firearm is clear. As always, these videos are meant for entertainment purposes. If you have a serious issue with your firearm, it's recommended you take it to a competent gunsmith. Let's get started. Alright, let's go ahead and get the stock off of this real quick. This is one main takedown screw and one screw here in the back. This is the older style Glenfield model. It does not have the bolt hold open, and it does have the two screws back here. One screw just holds the trigger guard of the stock, and the other one comes through and holds the receiver and the stock together. The new style ones are plastic and only have one screw back here. There's a takedown screw. There's your rear screw. And we'll go ahead and get this trigger guard out real quick. Like I say, on the newer model ones, this rear screw is omitted, it's not there. And also, some of the newer model ones will have a bolt hold open latch right here. To get this front screw out, you have a metal spacer or a metal nut right here. A lot of times you'll have to hold that with your finger. There's your screw, your trigger guard, and pull that out so you don't lose it. Your little washer or nut. Alright, we'll set that stock aside for the moment. One side, or usually the right side, will be the pin will be indented, and it'll be flush on the other side. This flush side is knurled, so if you'll knock it out from the right side, it'll come out the left, and when you go to put it in, knock it in from the left and leave the knurled side facing outwards. That first one will get your trigger spring out. There's another one right here. That is for your actual trigger. There's your trigger pin. And your trigger comes right out. On your safety you have another small pin right here, and that pin will hold back a spring and a detent. When you take that out, you can get your safety out. It is under spring tension, so when you take it out, be careful. Well, sometimes that happens. There's your safety pin. Like I said, this hole right here, you'll want to capture that with your thumb when you pull your punch or whatever out. A lot of times that pin will spring back out at you. This one did not. There it comes. There's your safety spring. And if you'll turn that over, usually there's a detent that'll come out. Push your safety out. This one's all gummed up, it's stuck in there. If it doesn't come out like this one's not, sometimes you can reach back inside the trigger guard right here and find the hole and just push it out. And there's your detent. When it goes back in, this little stem will go up, and your safety spring that we took out a second ago will slide over on top of it like that. There's your safety and completely disassembled trigger guard. Alright, so let's put this back together real quick. Coming from the right side of the trigger guard, you'll take your safety with the red side of the safety. It'll go in first. Let's go with our detent in. Remember, the little stem goes up. There's our safety going in. Push that down in there and seat it a little bit. Remember, the knurled side of the pins goes in from the left side. You'll need to take something and push this spring and depress it enough to get this pin started. Once you get it started, just tap it right on back in. Get in there. There we go. Next, your trigger will just drop straight in. The small pin will go in the back hole. And we'll just seat that back in. When you're putting your trigger spring back in, it's going to set in this configuration right over top of the trigger. So it's going to go just like this. It's going to drop right down in there. And then your large pin, it's going to go in. You'll have to line that spring up so it goes through that spring. And then there's also a front hole on your trigger. Right here, it's going to go through that as well. There it goes. It needs another. There we go. Next, we'll do your magazine. If you ever need to take this apart, all you need to do is knock this one pin out, and this whole cap will come out along with your spring and your follower. If you don't need to take it apart to replace something or fix something that's broken, just give it a wipe down. There's no sense in taking that apart unless you have to. It's very easy to bend or deform this brass magazine tube when you're trying to knock that punch or knock that pin out with a punch and whatever block you're going to have this sitting on. It's very, very easy to bend or deform that brass on that magazine tube. So unless it's necessary, I would suggest you leave that be. Alright, next we'll take off the front sight and band. This is the old style front sight and band. The new style is a little different than that. It'll just be a hex head Allen screw right behind the front sight. and then we'll have the one pin. The pin actually holds the magazine tube in. You can knock the whole thing off right now, but it's easier to get this off while it's out, while it's all together. There's your pin for that. Now, theoretically, this front sight comes straight off, but it usually doesn't. We're going to get that magazine tube out of our way. And there's your front sight. Go ahead and wipe this magazine tube down real quick. Let's give it a good quick once over. It's usually not that bad. While you've got this apart and outside of the front sight housing, is a good time to check your tab right here. That's what your magazine will lock into. Make sure that's not bent up or whatever, and make sure it's in good shape. They usually get a little bent. This one's a little out of round. Just want to give it a little tweaking if you need to. And your pin and your magazine just goes in there and locks in. Alright. The rear sight's easy enough. Pull it up. You can pull your sight leaf out. If you're so inclined to do so, it's easy enough to knock it off. Get you a nylon punch or a non-marring punch of some kind. And it'll pop right off of there. Alright. This is where the fun and the confusion usually starts for everybody. And trigger group. Alright, this is an old style trigger group. It has screws at the front and back that hold this attached to the rifle. The new style will not have these screws. It'll have a plastic pin that goes through here, and it'll have two little studs that stick out on either side, and a notch cut in the front of this trigger group, and it'll sit under those pins and fold down, and the plastic retaining pin will go in. And then the newest style will be just like that, but it'll also have a bolt hold open lever attached to it down here. Now these screws will screw into each other, so you'll need two screwdrivers to get them apart. obviously opposite directions. Sometimes you can take that one and push the other one. Oh, those are sticky. Those ain't been out in a long time. See how they'll just screw into each other. And the front ones are their own screws. Alright, and like I said, the two front screws are just their own individual screws. The rear one is the only one that is that screws into itself. And like I said, on the newer style one, it doesn't have this screw. It's got a plastic pin that just pushes in. And the front doesn't have these screws either. It's just got, there's two studs right here. And this front of the fire control group and everything is notched. And they'll set under those studs and then just fold down into place. We'll set that aside. We'll deal with that in just a second. So pretty filthy, you can see. It's pretty common problem with old 22s. They get used and abused and never properly cleaned, and then people get rid of them because they don't work right, and all they really need is good cleaning. Alright, this bolt's fairly simple to come out. If you'll pull it back a little bit, I just pull it back a little bit. You get a little screwdriver in there and get it pushed up. That'll release the charging handle. Then you can just take and sort of help it out there. You gotta be careful, this spring will come out flying if you ain't careful. There's your bolt, your recoil spring guide rod, and this thing is just absolutely filthy. It's like the last owner of it just thought the answer to his problems was just pour more oil in it. Now, I'm not going to take the barrel off of this, but if for some reason you do need to remove the barrel, it's only held in with this one pin right here. It's a press fit pin. It's tight and it's hard to get out, but it will come out. It'll come out. You'll knock it from the left side, it'll come out the right side, and then the barrel is splined into the receiver. So once you knock that out, you can give it a little wiggle as you're pulling, and it will pull out of the receiver. But we're not doing that. There's no reason to do that unless you have an issue with the barrel or the receiver. We'll set that aside. Wipe this bolt off a little bit. And as usual, looks like it's in pretty good mechanical shape. It's just filthy. Alright, we'll try to get this bolt apart for you real quick. Sometimes this bolt on these come right apart. Sometimes not so much. You've got a left and a right side extractor. Your left side extractor, so I'll have to drive this pin out right here. And your right side extractor has a pin right here. And then this pin right here will hold in your firing pin and your roller right here. There's your left side extractor pin, and just like the other ones, one side is knurled. When you put it back in, the knurled side is going to be on this end. It's going to be knurled here, not knurled on the top. There's your left side extractor. And extractor spring. Alright, we're going to go for this other extractor. This one is usually the one that gives you some problem. Popped right out of there this time. There's your pin on the other side. In this case, the knurled side is going to be right here on this top side. A little short pin. Alright, there's our right side extractor. You look at the right and left extractor. They're easy enough to tell them apart if you get them mixed up. The left extractor has this curve end right here, and the right extractor's pinhole is on this big bump. So if you get them mixed up, this is left, this is right, or charge and handle ejection port side, non-ejection port side. This one uses the short pin, this one uses the long pin. Next, we're going to try to get our firing pin out. There's your firing pin retaining pin. As all the other ones, this one is knurled. The knurling goes on the non-ejection port side of the bolt. Pull that out. Catch your roller right there. And then your firing pin will come right out, and that's your bolt disassembled there. Now the fun part. Now, this trigger group, if you don't need to take this apart for some reason, don't, unless you just really want to. It can be a pain. It can make you yell and cuss and holler. Usually you can just get some brake free and a brush and scrub it out, and then maybe blow it out with some compressed air, and that'll be just fine. If you get something that's broken and you have to replace a part, or if it's this nasty like this one and you just have to take it apart to clean it, it is possible to take it apart. We'll go over that real quick. It's a lot easier to get apart than it is to get back together. Let's get started. First of all, we'll take and decock the hammer. You'll put your thumb on the hammer right here. You can push it back. This is your disconnector right here. When you're pushing on your hammer, make sure you don't push that disconnector too. If you do, it ain't gonna go nowhere. So push just your hammer, and you can let the tension off of that. Take this C-clip right here, get you a little pick or a flat blade screwdriver. We'll use a little pick here. You get right in that little C-clip. You pull it right off of there. Be careful and don't lose these. They are easy to get misplaced. Pull that C-clip off. Get these next two C-clips off. See there? See how easy that was? Just about lost that one. Yeah. Alright, when you pry this up just a little bit, you gotta be careful because this hammer spring still has spring tension on it. And this piece, this will be your hammer strut, goes through there with your hammer spring, and this is the piece that's going to give you the most aggravation when you put this back together. Those two pieces right there, actually. This buffer will come right off. When you put it back on, the large flat side goes to the inside. This whole piece will come apart. This will be your cartridge lifter spring. This will be your sear. It'll just, you took the C-clip off on that earlier, so it'll just pull right out. This pin will come out of it. Your spring will come out. And just keep note of the orientation of this spring. When it comes out, that'll go back down into this little hole right here when you go to reinstall. This side will be disassembled as far as you'll need it. Set that aside. Here's your cartridge block. Flip this over on the other side. Get your other two C-clips off. And pull these off. This get some of this off here so you can see what I'm talking about. This spring will sit in this orientation right here when you go to reinstall. Your pin will come right out of it along with the spring. Here's your hammer and your hammer strut. When you take your hammer pin out, it'll only come out one way. One side will be bumped out a little bit, and that'll be the, if you're looking at the hammer, the bumped out side will be on the right hand side of it, facing the hammer. And then there's your cartridge elevator, and that's your whole trigger assembly. You can, if you need to, there's a pin right there in the hammer to get that hammer straight out if it's bent or broken or whatever. But 99% of the time there's no reason to take that off. Just give it a good cleaning. Well, that concludes our complete disassembly of our Marlin Glenfield Model 60. Check back with us on our next video. We'll do a complete cleaning on this and do a reassembly on it and get her going. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe. That way we can get more of these videos out to you. I appreciate it, and thank you very much.